Leaky gut is one of the most overlooked drivers of modern illness, and yet it sits at the root of so many chronic problems that people battle every single day. When the gut lining is intact and acts as a strong barrier, carefully choosing what enters the bloodstream, but when that lining is damaged, it becomes porous. Undigested food particles, bacterial fragments, and toxins slip through the cracks, and suddenly the immune system is on high alert. That constant immune activation creates a storm of inflammation. People feel it as fatigue, brain fog, stubborn weight gain, hormone disruption, or a body that just won't heal. Conventional medicine often looks at those symptoms in isolation, treating fatigue with stimulants, gut pain with acid blockers, inflammation with steroids. But that is symptom suppression. The functional approach is to ask a better question. Why is the gut barrier failing in the first place? What has weakened this protective wall that should be safeguarding your health? If we step back and look through the lens of evolution, the picture becomes clearer. Our ancestors ate wild, unprocessed foods rich in fiber, polyphenols, and natural microbes from the soil. They fasted intermittently, lived in sync with circadian rhythms, and were not bombarded with the industrial toxins, antibiotics, and ultra-processed foods that now dominate modern life. The gut lining of a hunter-gatherer was robust, resilient, and constantly nourished by diversity. In contrast, today's diets of sugar, refined grains, alcohol, food additives, and chronic stress steadily erode the gut barrier, leaving it fragile and leaky. What follows is not just a digestive issue, but a whole body problem. Because once the gut wall is breached, every organ is vulnerable. The good news is that the gut can heal. With the right tools, it is possible to restore the microbiome, repair the lining, and reclaim the energy, weight control, and long-term health that so many people have lost. When people struggle with stubborn belly fat, most assume the problem is simply too many calories or not enough exercise, yet the reality is far more complex. The gut itself, specifically the integrity of the gut lining and the diversity of the microbiome, plays a central role in whether the body burns fat efficiently or stores it excessively. A leaky, inflamed gut disrupts hormonal signals, shifts metabolism toward fat storage, and drives the accumulation of visceral fat around the organs. This is why so many find that no matter how disciplined they are with diet and exercise, the fat clings on. Until the gut is healed, the body is operating in a fat storage mode. Inside the gut lives a vast ecosystem of microbes, and these organisms are not passive passengers. They dictate how many calories you extract from food, how much energy is available to cells, and whether fat is stored or released. Some bacteria are metabolically supportive. They ferment fibers into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which reduce inflammation, stabilize blood sugar, and increase fat burning. Others, however, thrive on processed sugars and refined starches. These species produce endotoxins, fuel cravings, and signal the body to hoard calories as fat. When the gut barrier is leaky, these microbial byproducts leak into the bloodstream, driving inflammation that locks fat inside cells. The result is weight gain, particularly in the form of dangerous visceral fat. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. Our ancestors' guts were home to thousands of species of microbes because their diets were wildly diverse. They ate fibrous roots, seasonal plants, nuts, seeds, and the natural bacteria that coated wild foods. This microbial richness acted as a protective shield against obesity. It meant that calories were burned efficiently, satiety hormones functioned properly, and inflammation was kept in check. In that environment, carrying excessive visceral fat was almost impossible. Contrast that with the modern landscape. Processed foods stripped of fiber starve beneficial bacteria. Repeated courses of antibiotics and acid-blocking drugs devastate microbial ecosystems. Glyphosate residues and food additives further disrupt microbial balance. The outcome is a collapsed microbiome, less diversity, more inflammatory strains, and a gut barrier that leaks. In that state, the body is wired to store fat rather than burn it. Hormones like insulin and leptin become resistant, appetite spirals out of control, and energy drops, creating the perfect storm for obesity and metabolic disease. What most weight loss advice misses is that this is not a problem of willpower, but of biology. You cannot out-exercise a damaged gut. You cannot calorie count your way out of chronic inflammation. When the gut lining is inflamed and microbial diversity is diminished, the very machinery that regulates metabolism is broken. That is why restoring gut health becomes the hidden key to natural fat loss. Healing the gut shifts the body back into balance. As the microbiome regains diversity, the fat-burning bacteria regain dominance. They produce compounds that suppress hunger, enhance mitochondrial energy production, and reduce fat storage signals. As the gut barrier repairs, toxins and food particles stop leaking into the bloodstream, inflammation calms, and insulin sensitivity returns. The result is not just a lighter body, but one that is metabolically resilient. Many people are surprised to learn that once the gut is healed, fat begins to melt away without the same struggle. This is because the body is no longer being tricked into survival mode. Instead of clinging to every calorie, it operates as it was designed to, burning energy efficiently, maintaining a lean body composition, and protecting against the dangerous accumulation of visceral fat. It is the return to an evolutionary normal where the gut is strong, the microbiome is diverse, and metabolism is naturally aligned with health. The truth is that the gut and weight are inseparable. Every bite of food we eat either nourishes the microbial allies that help us stay lean or feeds the strains that encourage obesity. Every medication, every exposure to environmental toxins, and every stressor influences whether the gut remains sealed or becomes leaky. This is why gut healing is not a side issue, but the foundation of fat loss. For anyone seeking to lose weight, restore energy, and prevent the diseases tied to visceral fat, the first step is to repair the gut and rebuild microbial diversity. Once that is achieved, the body's natural fat-burning metabolism can do the work it was always meant to do. Most people assume their food cravings come from the brain or from a lack of discipline, but the reality is that cravings are heavily shaped by the gut. The microbiome communicates constantly with the nervous system through the gut-brain axis, sending chemical signals that influence appetite, mood, and food choices. When the microbiome is balanced, those signals help guide us toward nutrient-dense foods that keep the body healthy. But when the microbial ecosystem is imbalanced, what we call dysbiosis, the signals are distorted. Instead of guiding us to real food, the microbes begin pushing us towards sugar, processed snacks, and junk foods that feed the very species causing the imbalance. These microbes essentially hijack the reward system. Bacteria and yeast that thrive on sugar send chemical messengers like dopamine triggers and short-chain fatty acid signals to the brain that create intense cravings. This explains why so many people feel powerless in the face of sweets or processed carbs. It is not a weakness of willpower. It is a biological manipulation. The unhealthy microbes are demanding the food they need to survive, and the host, the human, feels that demand as an irresistible craving. Over time, this microbial takeover makes people feel addicted to junk food because, in a very real sense, they are no longer fully in control of their appetite. From an evolutionary standpoint, this communication once worked in our favor. Our ancestors' guts were filled with a diverse community of microbes accustomed to seasonal fruits, fibrous roots, wild vegetables, nuts, and animal foods. When berries were in season, the microbiome reinforced the craving for them, providing antioxidants and energy at the right time of year. When winter came, the microbial community adapted to fat and protein, guiding appetite toward nutrient-dense animal foods. In this way, the gut-brain dialogue reinforced survival. Cravings pushed people toward foods that were available and nourishing, aligning perfectly with environmental conditions. There was no constant pull toward sugar or processed starches because such things simply did not exist. Modern dysbiosis has broken that evolutionary system. With processed foods, artificial sweeteners, alcohol, antibiotics, and chronic stress, the gut shifts away from diversity and becomes dominated by a few aggressive species. These microbes thrive on the easy calories of modern diets, and in return, they amplify cravings for more of the same. The brain receives constant eat sugar or eat refined carbs messages, while the beneficial bacteria that would normally encourage satiety and stability are suppressed. The outcome is overeating, constant snacking, and a sense of being trapped in a cycle of poor choices. The good news is that cravings can be reprogrammed. As the gut begins to heal and microbial diversity returns, the chemical messages change. Beneficial bacteria produce compounds that promote satiety hormones like GLP-1 and peptide YY, making it easier to feel full after meals. Short-chain fatty acids from fiber fermentation signal the brain that the body is nourished, calming the constant drive to snack. Instead of dopamine spikes from sugar binges, the brain experiences steady, balanced reward signals from whole foods. People often describe this transition as a lifting of addiction. The very foods they once could not resist begin to lose their grip, while cravings naturally shift toward fresher, nutrient-rich options. This shift explains why willpower alone rarely works. A person can try to resist cravings for only so long before biology wins. But by targeting the root cause, the microbial imbalance, it is possible to change the craving machinery altogether. Healing the gut is like resetting the appetite thermostat. Hunger aligns with actual energy needs, satiety signals arrive at the right time, and cravings become a guide toward nourishment rather than a trap leading to metabolic dysfunction. In a healthy gut, food choices feel effortless. There is no constant battle between what one should eat and what one wants to eat, because the two are the same. The microbes, the brain, and the body are all on the same team. That is why repairing the gut and restoring microbial balance is not just about digestion. It is about reclaiming control over appetite, breaking free from food addictions, and making eating a natural, instinctive process again. When the gut lining is intact, it functions like a vigilant security guard, deciding what is allowed into the bloodstream and what must be kept out. But when that barrier becomes leaky, fragments of undigested food, bacterial toxins, and microbial debris slip through. The immune system sees these foreign particles and launches a defense. What should have been a tightly regulated system of nutrient absorption becomes a battleground, and the outcome is chronic, low-grade inflammation that spreads far beyond the digestive tract. This constant immune activation is not harmless. Inflammation changes how cells respond to insulin, the hormone that normally ushers glucose into cells for energy. When inflammation interferes, cells stop listening to insulin signal, blood sugar rises, insulin levels climb higher and higher, and over time the body develops insulin resistance. This is the hidden mechanism that blocks fat burning. Instead of using stored energy efficiently, the body shifts into a state where fat is locked away, blood sugar is unstable, and cravings intensify. Many people notice this as a stubborn belly fat, fatigue after meals, or an inability to go for long stretches without eating. It is the first step toward metabolic disease. Over months and years, this inflammatory cycle paves the way for prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and cardiovascular problems. The link is direct. A leaky gut keeps pouring irritants into the bloodstream. Inflammation stays switched on, and insulin resistance becomes entrenched. This is why so many standard weight loss plans fail. They ignore the inflammatory trigger. You can cut calories or spend hours at the gym, but if your gut barrier is compromised and your immune system is under constant fire, the body will continue to resist fat loss. The metabolic machinery is stuck in survival mode. In contrast, our evolutionary baseline was one of low inflammation. Early humans were not consuming industrial seed oils, refined sugars, or chemical additives. Their diets were made of clean animal protein, seasonal plants, fibrous roots, and fats rich in omega-3s. They fasted naturally, allowing the gut lining to rest and repair. The result was a resilient intestinal barrier and an immune system that was calm unless truly threatened by infection. In that environment, insulin resistance was rare, energy was stable, fat was mobilized easily, and chronic metabolic disease was virtually non-existent. The functional approach to modern gut repair is to recreate some of those ancestral conditions. Step 1 is removing the irritants that perpetuate inflammation. Processed carbohydrates, refined sugars, alcohol, and food additives all feed the cycle of leaky gut. Pesticide residues and industrial seed oils further weaken the barrier. Eliminating these allows the immune system to calm down. Step 2 is supplying the nutrients the gut needs to heal. Compounds like glutamine act as fuel for intestinal cells, helping them regenerate and tighten the barrier. Zinc supports immune balance and tissue repair. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish or flax reduce inflammatory signaling throughout the body. Polyphenols from colorful vegetables and herbs nourish beneficial bacteria, which in turn produce short-chain fatty acids that seal the gut lining. Alongside nutrients, lifestyle matters. Stress, sleep deprivation, and overuse of antibiotics can all erode the barrier. Supporting circadian rhythms, practicing stress reduction, and avoiding unnecessary medications give the gut the conditions it needs to recover. As the lining repairs, fewer toxins leak into the bloodstream, inflammation subsides, and insulin sensitivity improves. Cells once again respond properly to insulin signal, glucose enters cells efficiently, and fat can finally be mobilized as fuel. What emerges is a simple but powerful principle. Until inflammation is resolved at the gut level, the rest of the body cannot heal. Weight loss will remain blocked, energy will remain unstable, and disease risk will continue to rise. But when the gut lining is repaired and the inflammatory fire is extinguished, the entire metabolic system realigns, fat burning switches back on, blood sugar stabilizes, and health restoration becomes not only possible but sustainable. This is the foundational shift required to reverse the epidemic of metabolic disease and return the body to its natural state of balance. Metabolism is often thought of as a fixed trait, something you inherit from your parents and are powerless to change. Yet the reality is that metabolism is deeply influenced by the trillions of microbes living in the gut. These organisms determine how many calories are extracted from each meal, how those calories are processed, and whether they are stored as fat or burned as energy. In other words, the microbiome acts as a metabolic gatekeeper, deciding how efficiently the body runs. Some microbial populations are highly efficient at pulling energy out of food. They can squeeze more calories from the same portion compared to other species. In a world of food scarcity, this was a life-saving trait. If you ate a fibrous root or a handful of wild seeds, these microbes ensured that every possible calorie was extracted and made available to the body. But in today's world of constant food abundance, that same efficiency has become a liability. People can eat a modest amount and still gain weight, not because they're overweight, but because their microbial balance is skewed toward energy harvesting species. Other microbes, however, work in the opposite direction. They ferment fibers into short-chain fatty acids that regulate appetite, stabilize blood sugar, and feed colon cells. They also support mitochondrial function, the tiny power plants in cells that convert nutrients into energy. When these beneficial microbes dominate, metabolism becomes flexible and efficient. Nutrients are used properly, energy is steady throughout the day, and fat burning is seamless. This microbial support explains why some people feel naturally energetic and lean even when eating the same foods as someone else who struggles with fatigue and weight gain. Leaky gut and dysbiosis shift this balance in the wrong direction. When the gut lining is compromised, inflammatory molecules leak into the bloodstream, disrupting mitochondria and slowing metabolism. At the same time, diets heavy in processed foods starve beneficial fiber, fermenting bacteria, and encourage the overgrowth of energy harvesting strains. The outcome is a sluggish metabolism where calories are stored instead of burned, cravings intensify, and fatigue becomes constant. Many people describe this state as running on empty, even though they are eating plenty of food. It is not a lack of fuel, but a breakdown in the machinery that processes it. From an evolutionary perspective, this trade-off made sense. Early humans often faced famine or long gaps between meals. In that context, having microbes that could extract every calorie from fibrous roots or tough animal tissue meant survival. The gut and its microbes evolved to maximize energy efficiency when food was scarce. But in the modern environment of supermarkets, fast food, and endless snacking, this system backfires. The same microbial efficiency that once protected life now drives obesity, insulin resistance, and metabolic disease. What was once a survival advantage has become a liability. The good news is that this system is not fixed. The composition of the microbiome can be shifted deliberately through diet and lifestyle, tipping metabolism back toward energy and vitality. One of the most powerful strategies is the use of prebiotic fibers, compounds found in foods like onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, and green bananas. These fibers selectively feed the beneficial bacteria that support mitochondrial efficiency and appetite regulation. Resistant starch found in cooked and cooled potatoes, rice, and legumes acts similarly, providing fuel for microbes that generate bitterate, a short-chain fatty acid that seals the gut lining and improves metabolic balance. Fasting is another natural reset. When the gut is given a break from constant feeding, microbial populations rebalance. Harmful species that thrive on continuous sugar intake weaken, while beneficial, stress-resilient grow stronger. At the same time, fasting lowers inflammation, repairs the gut barrier, and enhances mitochondrial performance. Even short daily fasting windows, such as 14 to 16 hours, can have a profound effect on restoring metabolic flexibility. Together, these strategies rebuild the microbial ecosystem in a way that aligns with human biology. Instead of microbes that hoard calories and promote fat storage, the gut begins to favor populations that burn fuel cleanly, support energy stability, and reduce inflammation. The result is a metabolism that feels lighter, faster, and more efficient, much like the natural state humans experienced in the evolutionary past. By repairing the gut lining, feeding beneficial bacteria, And embracing natural rhythms of fasting, it becomes possible to reclaim energy, vitality, and metabolic health in a world that constantly pushes the opposite. Longevity is often framed as a matter of genetics or luck, but research continues to show that the gut is one of the most powerful determinants of how well we age. A healthy, diverse microbiome not only protects against disease, but also influences how gracefully the body adapts to the passage of time. When the gut lining is intact and microbial populations are balanced, inflammation is kept under control, energy production remains strong, and the immune system operates with precision. These are the very foundations of healthy aging. One of the key mechanisms lies in the production of short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate, acetate, and propionate. These compounds are generated when beneficial bacteria ferment dietary fibers and resistant starches. Butyrate in particular has remarkable anti-aging properties. It nourishes colon cells, tightens the gut barrier, and prevents leaky gut from allowing toxins into circulation. Beyond the gut, butyrate crosses into the bloodstream and acts systemically. It reduces brain inflammation, supporting cognitive clarity and lowering the risk of neurodegenerative diseases. It protects mitochondria, the energy factories of cells, ensuring that they remain efficient and resilient even with age. It also modulates immune function, lowering the risk of chronic overactivation that drives autoimmune conditions and tissue damage. In essence, butyrate acts like a fountain of youth molecule, but only if the microbial ecosystem is capable of producing it in abundance. When dysbiosis takes hold, that production collapses. The overgrowth of pathogenic strains reduces the output of beneficial short-chain fatty acids. Instead of healing compounds like butyrate, the gut begins releasing endotoxins that accelerate aging. These toxins spread through the bloodstream, fueling systemic inflammation, stiffening arteries, and impairing brain function. The immune system, overwhelmed by constant triggers, loses its sharpness and becomes both overactive and exhausted. This is one reason why people with poor gut health often experience premature aging. They develop wrinkles earlier, suffer from joint pain, fatigue, memory lapses, and chronic illnesses decades before they should. Our ancestors were largely protected from this scenario. Their guts were seeded with diverse microbes from natural births. Breastfeeding, soil exposure, and unprocessed diets. They consumed high amounts of fibrous roots, leafy plants, wild fruits, nuts, seeds, and naturally fermented foods. These inputs ensured that their gut bacteria produced abundant butyrate and other protective compounds. Their immune systems were constantly trained by diverse microbial exposure, making them both resilient and balanced. As a result, many traditional cultures showed remarkable vitality well into older age, with far lower rates of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and dementia compared to modern populations. The resilience of their gut microbiome was a cornerstone of their longevity. Modern life has eroded that foundation. Antibiotic overuse, cesarean births, formula feeding, ultra-processed diets, artificial additives, and chronic stress have stripped away microbial diversity. The result is an aging process that is accelerated, not because the body is designed to break down so quickly, but because the microbial ecosystem that sustains it has been damaged. Without the protective metabolites of beneficial bacteria, inflammation rages unchecked. Mitochondrial decline accelerates and the body loses its ability to repair itself. The path forward is to deliberately restore microbial richness and protect the gut lining as a way of slowing aging and extending health span. Feeding the microbiome with prebiotic fibers from vegetables, legumes, and resistant starch provides the raw material for butyrate production. Consuming fermented foods like sauerkraut, kefir, and kimchi reintroduces beneficial strains. Healthy fats, especially omega-3s, work alongside microbial metabolites to reduce inflammation and protect brain and heart health. Lifestyle practices such as intermittent fasting allow the gut lining to rest and repair, while exposure to natural environments helps recede microbial diversity. By prioritizing gut health, the benefits extend far beyond digestion. Energy is preserved, the brain remains sharp, the immune system stays balanced, and the risk of chronic diseases drops significantly. A healthy gut transforms aging from a process of decline into one of sustained vitality. The evidence is clear. The state of the gut determines not just how long we live, but how well we live. Healing leaky gut and restoring microbial diversity is therefore not just about burning fat or relieving symptoms. It is about slowing the aging process itself and building resilience that carries the body into older age with strength and clarity. Healing leaky gut is not about finding a single magic pill, but about rebuilding the body's foundations step by step. The gut is remarkably resilient when given the right conditions, and the process is best understood as a return to the way humans were designed to live. Each piece, diet, lifestyle, avoidance of irritants, and targeted nutrients works together to seal the barrier, rebalance the microbiome, and restore long-term resilience. The first step is diet. The foods we eat either nourish the gut lining or erode it further. A paleo-keto template provides a powerful starting point: whole, unprocessed foods, high in nutrient density and low in inflammatory triggers. Animal proteins supply amino acids that repair tissue. Healthy fats such as olive oil, avocados, and grass-fed butter provide stable energy without spiking blood sugar. Carbohydrates should come mainly from fibrous vegetables, nuts, seeds, and low-sugar fruits, ensuring a steady flow of prebiotic fibers that beneficial bacteria ferment into healing compounds like butyrate. Polyphenols from colorful plant foods act as antioxidants and selectively feed protective microbes, adding another layer of resilience. Fermented foods, sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, or miso reintroduce live cultures that restore microbial diversity. The second step is lifestyle alignment. The gut thrives on rhythm, and circadian cues regulate digestion, hormone balance, and microbial activity. Consistent sleep patterns, exposure to natural light during the day, and darkness at night help set this rhythm. Hydration is equally essential, as water supports mucosal integrity and the movement of nutrients. Stress management cannot be overlooked, since chronic stress hormones weaken the gut barrier and alter microbial balance. Practices like meditation, deep breathing, nature walks, or gentle exercise calm the nervous system and allow the gut to repair. Intermittent fasting or time restricted eating adds another evolutionary layer, giving the gut time to rest while enhancing microbial resilience and barrier integrity. The third step is avoidance. Healing cannot occur if the same insults continue. Processed foods, refined sugars, artificial additives, and industrial seed oils are constant irritants to the gut lining. Artificial sweeteners, though marketed as safe, can disrupt microbial diversity and should be eliminated. Overuse of antibiotics and acids suppressing medications weakens both the microbiome and the barrier, so these should be minimized unless absolutely necessary. Environmental toxins such as glyphosate, residues, plastics, and heavy metals also play a role in gut injury, making organic food choices, clean water, and reduced exposure important parts of the strategy. Targeted nutrients accelerate repair. Glutamine is the preferred fuel for intestinal cells, helping them regenerate quickly and seal gaps in the lining. Zinc supports tissue repair and balances immune function. Probiotics introduce beneficial strains that crowd out harmful species and restore ecological balance. Vitamin D modulates immune activity and strengthens barrier integrity. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil or flax reduce inflammation and support cell membrane health. Together, these nutrients act as building blocks, providing the raw materials for the gut to rebuild itself. This blueprint is not about quick fixes, but about returning to evolutionary norms. For millions of years, human guts were naturally resilient because they were supported by diverse diets, clean environments, microbial exposure, and rhythms aligned with the sun and seasons. Modern life has stripped away those supports, leaving the gut fragile. Healing means consciously recreating those conditions, feeding the right microbes, avoiding modern insults, and giving the body time to repair. As the gut barrier strengthens, inflammation calms, cravings shift toward real foods, energy stabilizes, and metabolism becomes flexible again. Hormones that regulate appetite, mood, and fat burning realign with their natural patterns. Visceral fat, once locked in place by inflammation and dysbiosis, begins to recede. The immune system, no longer trapped in a constant state of defense, becomes sharper and more balanced. What begins as a digestive repair becomes a whole body transformation. By repairing the gut barrier and nourishing the microbiome, it becomes possible to restore energy, shade visceral fat, balance hormones, and extend both health span and lifespan. This is the path to resilience, where the body no longer fights against itself but returns to its natural design, strong, lean, clear-headed, and capable of thriving well into older age.